regardless of the military situation. Okay, so all that stuff is pretty bad. But what makes the whole thing worse is, once again, if we go back to these guys here have gone to the US and they said, look, the 1,400 people Hamas killed was an existential threat to Israel. It's another Holocaust. The Ukrainians are selfish. They've never undergone a genocide. They've never undergone any kind of oppression or suffering or foreign occupation. We're the only people in human history who have. So you got to send us all the stuff that was meant for Ukraine. So the U.S. does not produce enough weapons to supply Ukraine as it is. Their shell production is far below what they need. Also, production of stuff like Patriot missiles, ATACMS. The U.S. provided Ukraine with ATACMS. It was like 20, and that was supposed to change it. All this other stuff. Unfortunately, those artillery shells are not going to go to Ukraine. At least a substantial number of them. So, U.S. artillery shells to be diverted to Israel. Axios has reported that three Israeli officials, tens of thousands of United States, 155, let's see here, artillery shells from emergency stock that were meant to go to Ukraine have now been diverted by the Pentagon, who's going to send them to Israel to shell Palestinians. Let me see. What is America's? I think it's 30,000. Okay, the U.S. currently produces, as of September, so as of last month, the U.S. produces 28,000 shells a month. So if they sent tens of thousands of shells to Israel, then that means, like, of those produced, and this is once again assuming that the U.S. doesn't do anything else with it. Like, if the U.S. produces 28,000, we're assuming that all 28,000 of those go to Ukraine. They don't keep any of them. They don't give it. They don't sell any to Korea. They don't sell any to Europe. They don't sell any to Canada. That 100% of its production is immediately sent to Ukraine. So even given that, if they're sending like tens of thousands of shells, they only produce tens of thousands a month. So it's like, I guess all the shells they produced for the month of like September just went, or maybe October as well, just went to Ukraine or went to Israel, and they didn't go to Ukraine. And this is like at the tail end of an offensive. Um, let's see here. So America was giving them. So the U.S. stores ammunition in a stockpile in Israel, but Israel's allowed to use it whenever they want. So I mean that's cool. So the Israeli Defense Forces, Ministry of Defense, told the U.S. counterparts they urgently need artillery shells to prepare for a ground invasion in Gaza. Like once again, one of the requests was to get tens of thousands of 155 millimeter artillery shells to fill back the depleted U.S. emergency stocks in Israel. Now, keep in mind, I've seen this a lot. They aren't Israeli stocks. They're U.S. stocks that are kept in Israel that belong to the American government. And they're like, look, we're entitled to all of this stuff. You aren't allowed to give your own shells to Ukraine. Those belong to Israel. So we're just going to need more. And the Israeli official said the U.S. agreed and will be sending artillery shells to Israel in the coming weeks. Um, Once again, I don't get why Israel. I guess is Israel just like a really poor country? Like, can they not stockpile their own ammunition? Can they not build their own defense industry? Like, do they just have no military? Like, or is it just because like they know like if someone else is going to give them something? Like if you know, like if you're a woman and you know you can get a simp to just pay for everything, I mean, why wouldn't you just do that instead of working for a living? I mean, they know the U.S. will just basically give them whatever they want, and there's nothing to do. Everything can just be made available for Israel immediately. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm just gonna check if this will load. Okay, so this was another article from noted pro-Ukrainian source, the New York Times. Ukraine and Israel are fighting different kind of wars, but some weapon systems could be sure in short supply if the fighting continues for months. I mean, they're already in short supply. But the question is, who's going to get these weapon systems? Is it going to be, where is it? Where's the picture of Zelensky? Is it going to be Zelensky, or is it going to be these guys? Who do you think that the U.S. political class is more eager to give those weapons to? It's an interesting question. Artillery ammunition is needed by both Israel and Ukraine. With his primetime vow to send more weapons to both Ukraine and Israel, President Biden sought to make clear on Thursday that the United States was not prioritizing one war over the other. Once again, who do you think they're going to prioritize? But hours earlier, said they were providing tens of thousands of shells to Israel. You're probably going to see a steady flow of weapons coming to flow into Israel. Some of these shipments could include the same types of artillery and bombs that Ukraine has relied on in its own 20-month ground war to defend its territory from Russia. So, yeah, there's very little overlap between what we're giving Israel and what we're giving Ukraine. What? But they said shells. Like, wait, there's not. 155 millimeter shell is the primary artillery shell that Ukraine uses. How is there not competition for like the main type of ammunition artillery's guns? You guys get what I'm saying here. Like, I'm not crazy, right? Um, these things like look like the same. Like, I don't know. It's the same weapon. There will be trade offs in supplying both wars the longer they last. Here are the three key weapon systems that are missing artillery ammunition. The US has sent Ukraine more than 2 million rounds of 155 millimeter shells, and Ukraine has delivered EU has delivered hundreds of thousands more. I think Russia produces at least 2 million a year. I think that was their production yearly production before the conflict. Also, I think Russian shells are much less expensive to build. Western military stockpiles are nearing the bottom of the barrel. In January, the Pentagon said it would tap into Americans' emergency stockpile in Israel and ship hundreds of thousands of millimeters to Ukraine. The stockpile is located in Israel, the closest American ally. Yes, our greatest ally in the Middle East. It's not Turkey, guys. It's Israel. Even though Turkey sent troops to support to fight in the Korean War, even though Turkey's a part of NATO, Turkey's not their greatest ally, guys. Israel is. What's like? Look at this guy. This is a man who had his country's emergency munitions that they didn't actually own. The U.S. actually owned them. Sent away. He had them sent away, and there's going to be another Holocaust because of this. Declined to discuss the details of any was ensuring that the U.S. top priority is ensuring Israel has the resources it needs during this time. So once again, you have Ukraine who's fighting this like existential war against a much larger, better equipped enemy, and they're running very low on manpower and shells. And Israel's fighting like a bunch of just random terrorists in an urban setting. That's like Israel needs the money. Um, is Another Defense Department official said Israel and Ukraine may receive different variants of ammunition to avoid overlap. The United States said it could give Israel precision guided shells to hit targets in a crowded urban area because Ukraine doesn't need precision guided shells. Is that like what they're saying? Well, the cluster munition rounds that are being sent to Ukraine may be more effective against positions spread across a battlefield. I mean, we have like I'm pretty sure cluster bombs aren't effective against fortifications. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat or under the in the comments of the video, but I'm pretty sure that cluster bombs are effective against infantry and light vehicles, they are not as effective against tanks and fortifications. Also, cluster munitions are horrific weapons that will leave eastern Ukraine like covered in these little unexploded bomblets for generations to come. Um, so, yeah. Also, if they're out of how many cluster munition rounds do they have? Let me see. Okay, so Human Rights Watch. Let's see here. Not sure how many they have exactly. There has to be a limited. Okay, so according to Cora, who is the most accurate source, there is millions of 155 millimeter clustered shells left. Okay, so maybe they do have enough cluster shells to provide Ukraine with them for the foreseeable future. But once again, those stockpiles are not being replaced. They aren't getting normal rounds, which is what they need, and they're not going to get precision guided rounds because why would they need precision guided rounds? Weapons the U.S. Has sent to Israel include 1,000 small diameter bombs, which weigh about 250 pounds each, and use a GPS navigation system to strike and track and strike targets. Sorry. Um, so Israel has bought more than 8,500. I guess that they've just like blown through them all, and now they just have to give them stuff. Um, okay, let's see here. Stinger missiles. Uh, okay, they both need Stinger missiles. Isn't the U.S. out of Stinger missiles? I also think Stinger missiles aren't being produced anymore. Uh, okay, so let's see. Who is this? Okay. This looks like 100% legitimate. So this random source says the U.S. government provided Ukraine with 1,500, and they are currently attempting to increase production to 60 a month by 2025. Yeah, that is not a lot. I don't know what it is now. If it's like 20 or 30 a month, but they're totally it's enough, guys. They're going to replace it. So we have Stinger missiles, we have smart bombs, and we have artillery ammunition. As far as I can determine, Israel is going to get the first pick of all of it, and this brings us to the aid package. So there recently was a change in leadership within the um, Congress. So Speaker Johnson came to power. Now he is like all evangelical Christians. He worships these guys as much as Christ, and he wants to give Israel the money. He doesn't want to give Ukraine the money. He has voted against every single Ukraine aid package after the first one. So, with that being said, and I guess this is Al Jazeera, so this is bad, but whatever. The budget request is critical. Okay, so he asked for $105 billion, of which 61 billion is going to Ukraine, 14 billion is going towards Israel, and there's also some going to Taiwan, and a bunch of money that's also going to the border. So, like, the Biden idea behind this was okay, we're just going to tack on this stuff the Republicans don't want to pass. Um, we're going to tack on Israel because they have to fund Israel. They have to fund Taiwan. They have to. This is their only chance to get the border security passed. So either you vote on this or don't vote on this. And one of the main reasons that Kevin McCarthy was removed was because he was going to pass. He was going to bring this bill to the floor as this big omnibus aid package, and Matt Gaetz and a bunch of other people were like, no, we should vote separately on this. These should be separate bills. Ukraine aid, Israeli aid, Taiwanese aid, budget for border defense. All of these things should be voted on separately. It doesn't. Doesn't make sense for them all to be in one thing. So I'm not sure exactly where we are at the moment with it, but it's delayed. Blinken, Austin call on Congress to pass the age package. Um, so, okay, let's see here. Did it pass the House? I'm not sure. I think they're sending it to the Senate first. Um, yeah, Mike Johnson said that the House would pursue the money for Israel, um, allocate by slashing funding allocated to the IRS. Okay, that's kind of funny to be honest. Um, but I don't think they're going to pass the Ukraine aid package. I think they're going to do the Israeli one separate. That's going to pass. Biden's not going to be able to veto it, uh, or they aren't going to be able to vote it down. And then we're going to have to try to get with the whole, like, the rest of the money passed. So we come back to the point I made earlier. Uh, Ukraine is facing a budget deficit of approximately $40 billion. So between so the U.S. is going to give them 60 billion, so that's enough to more than make up for their budget deficit for next year. The Europeans are going to give them another bunch of money, so the Ukrainian state will be solvent for the next year. Once again, I'm not sure what percentage of this 47 billion is aid, but it sounds like between Biden bucks and the EU's money and everybody else, they will be able to be fiscally solvent for a year. But currently, we have both the EU's main source of financial assistance on life support, and the U.S. isn't doing it. Now, once again, will these things pass? Probably it eventually will, but every day and every week that this gets delayed, it's going to come that much time later. It takes time to send this money. It takes time to send the tanks, to package everything up and ship it across the ocean. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't know how much in cash reserves they have at this point in time. Because keep in mind, like, they have to pay the civil servants to keep doing their jobs. They have to keep sending out welfare checks. They have to keep doing repairs whenever stuff gets blown up. They have to pay for the medical care. I'm sure within these budgets there probably is just stuff like basic medicines, military rations, lots of just basic aid stuff. And the longer they don't get that, the longer they're going to have to take money from other sources to try to make up for that shortfall. And that's basically the picture that I understand at the moment. We have a failed offensive. We have manpower shortages. We have where were these guys coming in, taking all the attention away from Ukraine, saying Ukraine is an anti-Semitic state because they think they're suffering. We have to give all the aid to Israel, and the fact that the one of I guess the ironies of this is Biden might have been able to get the aid passed if they were able to like bundle it with border security. They might have said, okay, if you give us $40 billion in Ukraine aid, we will build the wall and secure the southern border. And Republicans might have gone, that's the best we can get. But because of the Israel thing, the bill is going to get split up. And because of the Israel thing, McCarthy got taken down. And the Democrats stupidly voted for him to be removed. Keep in mind, if the Democrats had have all just abstained in the confidence vote, McCarthy would still be Speaker. This aid package would have been passed with bipartisan support, and the money would already be on the way to Ukraine. But they had to vote McCarthy out, even though he was willing to pass this without altering it, because they're just that petty and short sighted and stupid. So that is the situation we have ourselves in. The Ukrainian cinematic universe is on life support. They aren't getting any funding. That the big offensive failed, and worse than I thought it was going to be. And I don't think anyone could have predicted this whole thing happening in Israel and how fast it was going to turn things around. You also have, and this is getting slightly off topic, the ceasefire votes. Now, I don't pretend to really care about the UN. I have a lot of issues with it. I do think it is valuable from the perspective of offering an opportunity for debate and for countries to bring uh, their uh, problems to a diplomatic era and try to sort that stuff out outside of it. So this was the vote from a couple days ago. So this was for a ceasefire in Gaza so that they could go ahead and bring aid in. Now, Hungary voted against this. My guess is that Hungary vetoed that other aid package. So the US is like, look, guys, we don't really care about Ukraine. We care about Israel. If you vote with us to help Israel this time, to give us a little bit of cover, then we'll forget about some of that other stuff. So the U.S. was joined by such illustrious countries as Israel, Paraguay, Guatemala, I think Fiji, Tonga, and Papua New Guinea, and also randomly, is that Croatia? I think Croatia, um, and a couple other people to vote against the resolution. A lot of other people just were neutral. Like all of America's other allies wouldn't even vote for this. Like Japan wouldn't even vote against it. Australia didn't. Canada didn't even vote against it. Germany did. The UK did. Like the most fanatically pro US, pro Israel countries on earth thought that this was a bad idea and didn't vote for it. So, I mean, yeah, is this? I'm trying to find where the more recent one is because I think there was another vote today. There's the Security Council voted. I don't remember. Oh, that was a little while ago. But yeah, so that is the situation the U.S. finds itself in, and this is just going to keep happening, and we're going to get to the point where it'll be like just America and Israel. Now, once again, I don't care about the UN General Assembly. I know this whole thing is just politics, but and like countries posturing. But looking at this from an optics standpoint, being the dude who's holding up the humanitarian ceasefire, along with these guys pulling like retarded stunts like this to try to justify their carpet bombing of the Gaza Strip, doesn't fly with most of the world. It just doesn't. Voting against humanitarian ceasefires. Keep in mind, this isn't like they're letting Hamas off the hook or anything. It's just saying, can we just have a pause so we can bring in some food, water, medicine, and try to like help out some of the mortally wounded people. Now, you could say that this whole thing is bad faith and that Russia, China, and the Arab states are trying to do this so they can smuggle more weapons to Hamas or whatever. But the optics are fucked. Like, being the dude who's like, no, you can't give aid. Like, it looks really bad, especially when no one else of substance really shares that opinion. And to back it up, you have these assholes with their Star of David things tried to say that like a ceasefire, so a ceasefire to give humanitarian aid to Hamas is the equivalent of the Holocaust. Is basically where we're at now. I forget it was Nikki Haley or someone who said like opposition to war with Iran is like anti-Semitism or something. Well, it's opposition to global war is anti-Semitism. And once again, as I often say, my actual opinion on this is kind of irrelevant.